Hey guys, this is Chillscape. From popular demand, I have decided to finally give a tutorial on a post I made over a year ago now, and it was an M83 influence rich pad sound. So here is the original patch, and I will be taking you through step by step in the decision making and the instructions on how to make this patch. So let's have a listen. Okay, so I recommend having a set of nice MIDI chords to work with on this tutorial, if you can. So go File, New Sound. And the initial thing you want to do is just check in your initial patch that the ADSR on your envelope 4 is completely flat on the decay, and that there's not a instant attack. And a little bit of release as well is kind of handy. So this is what obviously the initial patch sounds like, just a straight sine wave. Very loud, very harsh, but it does have the initial sound that we need anyway, which is a sine wave, but we'll keep that for later on in the patch. So the initial oscillator, on oscillator 1, we want to choose the mellow font, which is up here, and what we listen out for on the wavetable position is for a point around here which has quite an organy texture. So let's listen out for that. It's around 10 o'clock, but you can also hear a little bit of it over here. But that's a little too high end for me, and this has a lot more like mid-range that I want in the sound. So we'll find that again. This is the great thing about Massive. It has quite a dynamic like waveform that you can choose as your oscillator. But we'll stick with that anyway, and we'll set that to filter 1. Our second one is going to be blenders 1. And this is going to be around the same position, but just a little less. Nearly at 9 o'clock, but not quite. So we'll just turn this oscillator on and set this to filter 1 as well. And we'll hear it initially, but we are going to have to make a change to the pitch. So now we're having quite a lot of combating frequencies amongst these two oscillators. So we'll just set this an octave up and around 10 cents above that. And now I think it's a lot less masked and there's a bit more range within the two. Our next one is going to be square sine wave 2, and we'll turn this on. This is not going to be quite on filter 1 because we want this to sustain below the envelope later on in the patch. So we want it a little bit, but not all the way. So around halfway in between the middle and filter 1. I have the intensity up there too. So this is going to stay also at 0, but we are going to use an LFO, and we'll put this on there, and it's going to be around 10. like that. We want to set the rate to sync mode and set the ratio to 1:1. And on the crossfade curve, we don't want a combination of LFO. So we're going to set this just to sine as such. And this is what it can sound like with the sine wave now. Now it has so much more of the character that I initially got from the initial patch. So our next step is going to be with the chorus. So first of all, let's just clear this macro because we're going to start using the macros and we don't want the vibrato one. I had some experimentation and I found that just the normal chorus works the best. So we'll set the dry wet all the way down to the floor and we're going to select macro 5. Doesn't have to be, but just for copying the other patch, we will. And the rate will just be past halfway around here. The depth a little less than halfway, around a third, and the offset will just stay central. We'll call this macro chorus, and let's see what this sounds like. Just adds a little more thickness and a little width to the sound. So the next thing we're going to do is we can start to add a little bit of envelope control. So we're going to use a 4-pole low pass filter with the resonance all the way down to the floor and the cutoff all the way down to the floor too. We can't use envelope 4 because that's already on the amplitude modifier. So we can use anywhere from 1 to 3. I'm just going to use 3 because that's where my clicker was. We're going to set this cutoff all the way from the minimum to the maximum value, as well as the intensity on square sine wave 2, just because this isn't quite all the way up to filter 1. So when we want a bit of envelope control, we can also control this just from the intensity here. So the actual envelope controls we can change now. So we're going to use some macros here too. On the attack, this is going to be around here for the minimum value, and the maximum value is going to be a little less than all the way to the top, around there. The level is going to be at a minimum around just before halfway too, and its maximum value, sorry, the attack is meant to be on cutoff 2 just for this patch's sake, and the cutoff is going to be from around there all the way up to the top. So call number 1 cutoff, and we'll call number 2 the attack. So number 3 will be our decay, and we'll have it around here for the minimum, and around, sorry, this is not meant to be on level, this is meant to be on decay. Yeah, it's going to be around there for the minimum and around there for the maximum, and the level is going to be a little less, around a quarter, maybe a little less. We'll add a little more release too, but just a tiny bit. So we'll call number 3 decay. So we'll put the cutoff all the way to the top, the attack just a little bit up, and the decay we'll put all the way to the top as well. So this is what this sounds like with the envelope controls now. We have a lot more control over how the actual sound comes in now. So with number 4, we're gonna put these intensities on both oscillator 1 and 2 to the ground, and it's going to give us a lot more control over the actual intensity of the sound, over the actual envelope controls too. So this will be called intensity, and we'll see how this affects the sound. So we have a lot more control when the cutoff is lower, but not as much when it's higher. But regardless, we have a lot more control now. So the next stage is going to be this dissonant stage. Dissonance is just like purposeful detuning. I'm going to use frequency shifter. We'll turn it on. We turn the pitch all the way down to the bottom, and the dry wet all the way down to the bottom too. And on macro 6, we'll put this on the dry wet and put it from the bottom to the top. Call this dissonance. And this is what this is going to add to the sound. It sounds quite ugly without the reverb, but when the reverb is in, it's going to add extra detune on times where you may desire that. So next is going to be the reverb finally. So we'll use the big reverb over the small reverb, and we'll set the dry wet all the way down to the floor, the size all the way up to the top, the density a little wider, and the colour a little brighter as well. So we'll set number 7 on the dry wet, just all the way from the bottom to the top. I will call this one reverb, and we'll see how this affects the sound. Now we are a lot more closer to the desired sound just because of adding space. And the final touch I want to add to the sound is just some noise characteristics. So we'll choose bright noise. I'm going to have this color all the way to the top because that is the brightest. The filter to filter 1. And we can introduce this on a macro control by just automating the amplitude control here. And we're calling this waves because it just sounds like crashing waves pretty much. And we can add extra tone dynamics by linking this color knob to the envelope tab, so that when the filter goes up and down, the actual color of the noise will go up and down too. The final touch on the sound, although you can do this afterwards with an insert, but it's just a little EQ. We're not going to use the boost just because we don't really want to pick out a particular frequency. We just want to give the high end and low end a little nudge, not by much, only by about this much, around 1/8 extra over halfway. So let's hear how this affects the sound. I feel like the EQ definitely gives the sound a lot more definition, and it definitely makes the patch a lot stronger than it is. So I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial, and I hope you can do a lot more with this sound than what I could do. Thank you for watching.